All right, let's get this party started. I'm going to do a little thing on binding. We get a lot of questions, so Deb and I decided to do a little ditty for you. We have obviously all the tools that we'll be showing you today are available on our website. They're also available in a combo pack at a special price. Binding is like the finishing touch on your project. You want to take your time, take a little bit of effort, do it right because it's your last hurrah and it's all about the details. We have some great tools that make things a lot easier for you. We have, this is the needle threader from Clover. If you're not a pink girl, then you can get it in other colors as well. It is a little bit more dear. It's $23.98, but it is a godsend. It is absolutely a wonderful, wonderful tool, and it takes something that could take you far too long and get you too frustrated, takes it, reduces it to a few seconds. This is my absolute favorite. It's the domed needle thread holder. It's it allows me to thread 10 needles and leave them in there. And I'm a big advocate of taking my binding with me wherever I go, much to the dismay of my husband and children. So I tend to thread all my needles, and then when I'm out in the truck on the way to the cottage, then I can just pull them out of here. They're already done. I don't have to worry about all the semantics of getting another needle threaded. I carry a lanyard around my neck when I'm doing my binding, and I do have a little pair of scissors on the end. Not everybody wants the scissors. You could go with a pair of snips. They also go on a lanyard, but they have a little end thing that covers them up. I will tell you there is a benefit to that. It involves self-injury. So there may be, if you're a little klutzy like I am, there may be some benefits to that. We also have this little guy here too, which is the same idea, has a cap on it. I also love this tool. This is your thread cutter pendant, and I've taken this traveling before, and it looks like this, and you're able to cut your threads because in between each of these little spokes is a blade, so it's pretty hard to injure anybody else or yourself with it, which is pretty neat. And last but not least, one of my newest favorite things are these thread binding. It's a ring that fits on your finger. I obviously don't put it on that finger, put it on my baby finger, and it has a blade on it. And so again, you can cut. So again, something you could take while you're traveling to prevent any kind of injury as well, to yourself or to other people who are unpacking your stuff. Not that I would know from experience. So once you have your binding on your quilt, and again, if you have any questions about that, we'll probably do a video on that as well. But once you have your binding on your quilt, I tend to take a long stretch of it and put the binding clips on. There are two sets of binding clips that you can purchase. I, in my wisdom, have not brought out a package of each of those for you, but there are these from Dritz. They look like a hair clip, and they are available in the dollar store. However, if you get the dollar store ones, they have lots of little edges on them, and they little burrs, and they are not as good for your quilt. That's just my 10 cents. These are the other types of binding clips that are out right now. These clips are good for everything, and if you've been into mask making lately or any kind of purse making, you'll realize the value of these as well, because they don't actually warp or move your piece that you're working on. So I use both of them. I just use whatever's necessary, and when I'm not using them, when I have to remove them, I put them on my lanyard. It makes it really easy. My husband gets very irritated when I put them on the seatbelt, so this is actually a good substitute. So you're going to pop your needle into the threader, end in, obviously. Well, maybe it's not obvious. And you're going to put your thread across. There's a lovely little space for it to go across here. And then you press this little button down, and it's like freaking magic. And there's my needle already threaded. That's epic. Because honestly, having to wear these glasses as I'm in self-denial, this threading thing is becoming more and more of an issue. So I'm tying a knot. Nice tidy knot. Pull that down. So I have a pretty knot there, and I always trim this because I'm a little OCD about that. And then I think Deb's going to do like a close-up here because this is awkward. I'm going to take this off. And as you can see, this is where I have sewn to late last night because I'm a late night binder. But you know, if you find yourself an epic Netflix show, you can bind till the cows come home. So I'm going to slip my needle in there and have it come up underneath so that my knot is buried way deep, deep, deep inside there. And that's also another really good reason to trim your tail. That sounds rude. All right, so when you are about to take your stitch, I like to hold my binding almost so that it's vertical. And I dip down behind and into that backing fabric, and then I come up into the fold of my binding and pull. And I guess too, because I'm videoing that, I didn't do that as close as I would normally do. Okay, so I tend to hold my finger at the back of my work so that I know when I'm putting my needle through that I haven't gone too far into the fabric. You don't want to have those little dotted stitches of your thread showing through on the other side. At least I don't. And you're going to be able to use that as a guide when you have your finger back there. I don't often poke my finger, so it's just more of a cautionary thing. So now I've actually sewn right to the end of my corner. So what I've done is I took off my 2 clips that were sitting here. I opened this up and I have this sewn right out to the corner, right out to the edge. And I'm just going to take a little stitch because this is all going to be behind the fabric. I'm just going to tie myself a little knot here and knot that off. All right, I'm still going to leave the thread there for now. I'm going to put that in here. And then I tend to reposition my quilt a little bit. So this is always fun if you have a dog in your lap too. So then what I'm going to do now, and I find I do this just because of the angle, I am going to fold my corner into the miter that I need it to be. Now, if this doesn't turn into a miter, this is a go back to where you started thing. This is all easier when you machine stitch it correctly on the other side. You'll get your miters on this side. If that's not happening, then you need to watch our other video on machine mitering or come in and see me, one or the other. And yes, we don't have the machine one done yet, but we will. All right, so sometimes I just play with that until I get it to be as perfect as I want it to be. And I hold it with my wee thumb. And now I'm gonna, remember this is already knotted and down there. I'm going to slide my needle all the way down till she comes out here. Try not to hurt myself. And then I can feel that it's come all the way through. And then I tend to hold on to this and make tiny stitches as I go up this little seam. And I want to, again, keep to making sure that my needle stays underneath and this only comes up through the fold so that I don't see the stitches as I go. And sometimes I gotta fidget with it so that it happens correctly. And there we go. And then I'll just take my last stitch into the top, always trying to stay into the fold or underneath. And isn't that pretty? That's a pretty miter. And then I just get to keep going. Again, underneath into my blue fabric. Sometimes when they're stitching from your long armor, it makes it harder and you have to mess around a little bit to get that stitch perfect. Here I go again into the blue and then up into that fold. And one thing you want to remember, do not pull too tightly on that. If you pull too tightly on it, you will get these little bumps all the way down that look like little teeth. See, I think I did it. I think I pulled it tightly down here at one point. Also, if you want to avoid being able to see much of anything in terms of thread or pulling, it is always best to use a nice patterned fabric as you're binding. When you use a solid, you can see every single stitch and every little tiny error you might make. So that is something else to consider. The other thing you may want to think about is good lighting. So I don't have the light on because Deb told me I'm not allowed to have different lighting right now because it messes up our videoing, which we're not really that great at yet. But invest in a good task light. It means everything. And you do get to a point where there's frustration when you can't see your stitching properly. So a good light will help you. That is my video for today. I hope you enjoyed it, and we'll hope to get many more on for you. Thanks for joining us. Oh, and I'm pretty sure that Deb will have a link to all the pretty things that we showed you and all the useful things that we showed you attached to this video somehow. I don't know how, but somehow. Thanks.